So there's the Secretary of Defense. Oh boy, he's pretty incompetent, pretty bad, just like his Chief of Staff. We'll talk about him in a moment. The Secretary of Defense just put out a letter announcing that they're going to pay for travel and lodging expenses for service members who want an abortion. That's never happened before. And, it's kind of wildly off topic for what the military is supposed to be concerned with, like not losing any more wars. It's amazing. This happened last year, and the Pentagon seems to want to forget about it. General Milley, we've got huge problems with him. It's amazing these guys are still in power. We're joined now by Chris Farrell. He is the Director of Investigations and Research for Judicial Watch. He's also a former active duty Army officer, 11 years of service. Sir, welcome back to Newsmax. Where do we begin? First of all, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Greg.
All right. I was taken aback by the letter that Lloyd Austin should be wading into the most controversial issue of our time. Seems like it could be a distraction, not only for him, but for everybody else in the military. Or am I wrong?
No, you're right. It's also illegal. It's a violation of the Hyde Act. You can't expend federal funds to promote abortion, and that's what they're doing. So it's more criminality from the Biden administration. No one should be surprised at this. And by the way, Secretary Austin, while you're busy worrying about abortions, why don't you explain to the American public why the 101st Airborne Division has deployed to Romania and is currently sitting about 20 miles away from the Russian armed forces? That might be of greater import and significance than pandering to the Roe v. Wade election political activists.
I forgot about those guys. I remember they were mobilized. Is it the entire division, or is it just a couple of bits and pieces? What are they posted?
Well, the 101st Airborne Division is now headquartered in Romania. 20,000 soldiers.
That's an indication that something very big could happen very soon. And they're talking about this nonsense stuff. Or behind the scenes, are they on top of it? And what do you make of their presence there, by the way?
It's a further escalation. In my opinion, the Biden administration needs to exercise leadership by bringing peace to Ukraine and not continuing to escalate an already tragic situation. I believe in Ukrainian sovereignty. I support that 100%. But I've also watched what Russia does historically in these types of engagements, whether it is Crimea, where the Obama and Biden administration did nothing, zero, and allowed the Russians to take over Crimea, or go back a little further and look what the Russians did in 2 wars in Chechnya. When they got done with Chechnya, their capital, Grozny, looked like a lunar landscape. So the Russians have a very different timeline, a very different view towards these things. And if you want to grind up Ukraine over the next 10 years, keep doing what you're doing. The American public needs leadership. And what should happen is we should be in a position to negotiate with the Russians to bring peace to Ukraine and not keep escalating, spending. We're at the point where we're going to spend 70 billion U.S. taxpayer dollars on Ukraine. Do you think we have any other problems to worry about? How about a wide open southern border? How about gas prices? How about record inflation, a recession? I mean, there's innumerable problems, and we're focused on a country that is not a NATO ally and is not a member of the European Union.
Chris, we seem to be on a losing streak yet again. And who's to blame? Let's go through what we've lost lately. Afghanistan, Iraq was a mess. I mean, the way we got out of it, the way we went in there. You have to go back. I guess the Gulf War was successful, but then Vietnam was kind of also a quagmire. And I keep thinking about the generals and what's their role in all of this. And let's take a look at General Milley. He seems to be so emblematic of some of the officers I'm acquainted with. Do we have a picture of General Milley by any chance? He seems to be very, very political. And I don't think people on the outside realize that to become a general, you have to be political. We think they're great leaders, but, they really are the best at playing the game. what are your thoughts on the current crop of generals and generals past?
Let's start with Milley, who has engaged in the most insidious treason since Benedict Arnold. He called his communist Chinese counterpart and told them that he would give them a heads up if we planned any military action against China. That's documented a year ago in a book with Bob Woodward. There's another new book out where Milley's provided all sorts of outrageously, really obscene misconduct against the chain of command. And he's quite proud of it. You know, he's a political operator. This guy checks which way the wind is blowing. He's a litmus test guy. He got to 4 stars not by winning wars, but by winning political games and contests in the Pentagon. You started off talking about our streak. We have not decisively won a war, decisive victory in 77 years. And there's been next to no accountability. You've got former secretaries of defense and former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff signing open letters talking about the civil-military relationship and how it's a very difficult time now. This is scary stuff. When these guys put out open letters like this, it's a signal. Just like 2 years ago when those 50 phonies signed that letter as intelligence professionals claiming that the Hunter Biden laptop was Russian disinformation. That was a lie. Look at this recent open letter by the former secretaries of defense and JCS chairman. These people write these open letters for a reason, and it gets next to no coverage in the media, no discussion. It's of grave concern. Again, your viewers probably don't know that the 101st Airborne Division is sitting in Romania right now. There's been one CBS report that I've seen on it.
I knew that we had deployed, I thought it was support staff. I didn't know the entire division was over there either. That's on me. But thank you for informing us, and we'll find out more. 10 seconds. How do we rein in these generals? I mean, there has to be a culture change. What they're doing is, you know, if there's an insurrection, they're flirting with one. How do we rein them in?
These are all Obama generals. They accepted that a guy named Frank was going to show up in his skirt and call himself Francine, and somehow that was going to make the military stronger and better. They're compromised. The next Republican president needs to be very careful about the selection of general officers and look for people that actually want to win. That would make a big difference.
All right. Thank you very much. Let's do this more often. Chris Farrell, Director of Investigations and Research at the Great Judicial Watch. Thank you, and we'll be right back.